Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we've got a place where AI is working. I'm going to show you guys today through Jake Setterlun. He's going to show us how to use AI, especially in the world of insurance, mortgages, healthcare, home services, real estate world, how to use that to generate great leads. And I'm excited about having Jake on the show. Jake, welcome.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me. Excited to be here.
All of us are looking for AI. Like, all right, how are we going to use this thing? What's the masterpiece? I need AI because everybody knows that those who have AI and those who don't are going to separate from the rest of the world so fast you won't be able to catch up. Right? Yep. We all know that. Everybody knows that's the game. But we're all cats chasing a laser pointer. What am I supposed to do to get there? I want to dive right in and I want you to show people what you're doing today that's actually working with AI and how you're generating leads, and then have people really be able to see how do I apply that to my business.
Absolutely. The biggest thing right now for us implementing AI into local businesses and just individuals in the community is implementing what we like to call a voice setter into their business. So it's basically taking away everything that they would normally do as far as like an assistant in their business that's going to call people interested in working with them, that's going to take incoming calls, and we're replacing that with a voice, which is really cool and people are excited about.
So give me an example. So you generate a list of prospects, right? Let's just say that you're in the real estate world and you're generating a list of potential clients for a real estate team or office or an individual, and you're having an AI assistant make that call. And is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. We do marketing on top of implementing the AI for these businesses. So we'll run an ad on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok that says, hey, are you interested in buying a home? If so, click here, enter your info. And every every business knows that just because you get lead information doesn't mean they're actually serious on working with you. So we take the setter and we take the voice AI and implement that into their business. So it actually has a conversation with that lead before it gets passed to the actual real estate agent to make sure they're qualified and they're actually serious about working with them. Again, hence saving them a lot of time from actually having to just contact those leads themselves.
So let's do this because I've seen some great. Yesterday, I had an AI call. I could not. I kept talking to it, and I could not tell it was AI, but I'm certain it was. By the time I got to the end of it, I had to do a couple things, but it was the most realistic call I've ever had from an AI agent, and they're getting really good.
They are. We got started in this kind of industry right when AI, was starting in terms of actually adapting voice AI. And it used to be very robotic. You could tell like, okay, this is AI. And now it's absolutely crazy. If you're not behind the computer screen and like actually putting the AI together and the voice and the script, you really can't tell. Again, like you said, sometimes it screws up or says something weird and you're like, is this AI? But for the most part, people don't really, know at all. And even nowadays, you can actually clone your voice to have the AI sound like you actually calling the lead. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do nowadays.
It was kind of amazing. The call was about construction insurance. And, it was kind of, we're getting ready to go, we got a couple months to our renewals getting ready to happen. And I was like, well, just for kicks, let's see what I can do. And I'll put a little, I'll try this out and I'll respond back to it. Cause I could tell a little bit, but I could tell that the truth was I wanted to engage a couple more people in looking at our numbers for our insurance. So I was ready. Right. And so I responded back and then I got this email right afterwards. Right. It was kind of amazing how they kind of their sequencing was, neat. So talk to me about that. So how deep are you getting and what kind of stuff are you able to do around generating that lead?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for us, when we work with somebody, we look at it as a partnership and it's full service. So we do everything from the actual strategy of what ads are we going to run to get that lead information, the name, phone, email, and like that first engagement into wanting more information. We then set up the voice AI and different AI, conversations, whether it's texting, again, voice, email, and then everything after that as well, which comes into nurturing, automated messages that go out, different appointment booking and automated messages from there. So when we work with somebody, it's really full service from advertisement, lead gen, all the way to actually getting that client signed on and in your business.
So I think that's the thing that people aren't realizing, that today's marketing isn't just the phone call, right? It isn't just the email. It isn't just it becomes a system, right? You got to really look at your marketplace, what you're selling, and you got to look at your overall, maybe your battle plan. I like to look at it as a battle plan. I look at the battlefield, right? Look, these are all of the, let's say I have got a group of 10,000 prospective clients, right? There's my top 1,000, there's my top 100, right? And there's different techniques that I'm doing, and then there's kind of an overall campaign that I'm doing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We call them buckets in advertising. So you have your bucket of the 5% of people that are just super interested and like ready to buy whatever you're selling. And then you have that 20% that are kind of interested. You have to do, a little bit of nurturing. And then you have everybody else that you almost need to convince that, they need to buy a home if we're talking real estate, because they don't understand that that's something that they should be doing.
Well, and I think that's the mindset for me has always been, all right, I'm not necessarily going to sell everybody today, right? So there's kind of and we even have, there's that top 1,000, there's that top 10,000. We even have a top 50,000, right? Where it's the industry where we're, for us at CDO, we're really looking to, just have our brand out there, brand awareness, kind of what we do. Our goal is really for those three letters to be, engaged in the industry as a thought leader, as an industry leader. And here, not even that we're going to sell those 50,000 people. That's not the goal, but the goal is really to have awareness out there, engagement with, really here, and also communicate, industry standards and really create the industry as a whole and talk about technology and being smarter contractors and being smarter, right? For me, I look at it as that's part of the thing. You're not necessarily selling all the time. I love engaging with the industry.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about that. So for me, that feeds back to being in the industry, right? Being part of the industry, not necessarily that you're always selling, but you're also in tune with the people and what's going on, the conventions, the shows, the technology that's happening out there. And as we engage there, those give us a better view, give us better options to work with as we grow the company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something that, again, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. And it's something that I've definitely had times where I'm just like super engaged in what's new, what's going on, voices coming out, this new software came out. And then you have times where, unfortunately, it's just not something that you prioritize. You have fires going on in your business. And then you wake up from that, fixing that issue. And then you're like, holy shit, the landscape's changed. Something new came out. So it absolutely is probably one of the most important things in business, especially nowadays with tech, that if you're not on top of, you mentioned it, what's like the current business standard, what's the new way, or even just the default standard way that we need to be doing things. And if you're not up to date with that, it's very easy for you to get left behind.
Well, and also I feel like, look, every day I walk in the office, it's not like I walk in my office and I'm sitting there, right? I walk in, things are on fire, life is going, business is businessy, life is lifey, it's, I have 6 things I want to get done. I have 30 more things that show up.
Yep.
You never quite have enough time. Days, especially as I'm getting older, seem to get shorter, right? So setting up a system to be automated, right? For me, like it's got to be set up so that it works in the background. It's continuously setting up a system, setting up that system, that funnel, right? That top, call it 50,000 we're communicating with,
yep.
Right? We got that top 10,000 that are really maybe in our industry. We got that top 1,000 that are our core clients, type of clients. We got that top 100 are the ones that we want to be engaged with, right? So setting up a system that becomes automated, right? Even while I'm fighting fires all day as a company, as an entrepreneur, right? Like you're doing every day. If I can get that to happen as an automated system, that takes a little bit, but I don't think most entrepreneurs get that. I think most people are like, I don't have time to do that.
Yep.
Like you don't have time not to do that. If you don't stop and make that time, right? That's the places where setting up those automations that you guys do really does affect your ability long-term. It gives you just so much more bandwidth to handle the day-to-day stuff. I always say if 80% of those systems are in place, the 20% I have to deal with every day, I can really manage well.
Absolutely. That's something that we stress a lot, even in our marketing and in our sales process, is like, let us focus on what we do best, which is marketing, systems, automation. And you focus on, again, we'll use real estate as an example. You focus on selling homes and finding your clients the best deals or getting them the best, highest offer for their real estate, for their property. Let us focus on the marketing and let us set this up for you so that you can focus on being the best, possible professional in your profession. And again, some people understand it. Some people just look at it as an expense. And, we do our best to try to convince them otherwise, but it is, a constant struggle, but some people understand it. And again, those are the people that are always going to succeed.
There's always kind of those first adopters. We build a lot of franchise groups, and when I build these groups, there's the top 10% of franchisees that are always, they're the top revenue producers. They're the ones that have the best looking stores. They have the ones that are first to go jump on stuff. And you kind of wonder which one comes first, the ones that are the first adopters or the revenue, or because they have revenue, they can be the first adopters. I don't know which one comes first, the chicken or the egg, but there does seem to be that those first adopters that jump on the future and the ideas seem to do better overall.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that we see. And we even have, kind of like analyzed that market a little bit. And it's either you have the first adopter with money, and if they don't have money, what most of the time we've found that they're doing is they're going out there and building it themselves. So, they don't end up working with us, but they're actually in the trenches setting up the systems that we sell. And again, they're winning just as much as the people that are able to actually buy, a system or pay somebody to set it up for them.
Interesting. So let's talk about some of the breakthroughs. You've been doing this now for 10 years, which, by the way, congratulations on being an entrepreneur at 19. Look, I have such an affinity for that. I started young also. And just, I think that's a great place to do. Let's maybe talk about that a little bit. What made you go into business at 19?
Yeah, so I was in school for engineering. I've always been, as a kid, everybody asked, what do you want to be? I always said an inventor. So that led me down the path of engineering, product development. And I got to a point, there was a turning point where I was just like, I had done internships. This 9-to-5 stuff isn't for me. You're kind of put in this bubble, and it's like, I want to do my own thing. So I started a prototyping business, had some, a couple of little clients, little projects. Wasn't making any money. I was taking these on for free and learned marketing as a byproduct of starting a business, needing to get my name out there. That, of learning marketing and actually educating myself on that led me into doing marketing as a service for other individuals. So it took about, I would say, like 3 years for me to actually make my first, dollar, a substantial, amount of income. I did a lot of free work, a lot of skill building. I'm at heart a systems guy and a back end guy, not a sales individual. So for me, I always went out there and did, in business was like, hey, I need to find a partner that knows sales. And again, part of that is, not making money is I didn't know how to sell. So after that 3-year point, I had found a partner. I was very, very good at what I did on the back end, and it just kind of clicked, and we were able to scale, and we've scaled multiple businesses since then.
Well, I think that's one of the gifts of a great entrepreneur is noticing the patterns, right? Noticing and exploiting the patterns, right? You start to realize, look, I need this to run my business. And then, being able to take that and you started to exploit, what you needed to run your business into a business itself.
Absolutely. I went through a lot of different learning lessons, a lot of partnerships, a lot of things that it's like, this didn't work out, but I'm going to move on to the next person. And in every single one of those partnerships, you always learn something that you carry to the next one. Maybe it's like this person wasn't an opposite. Like we were both geeks. We both knew the back end. So, neither of us could sell. So how are we going to grow a business if one of us doesn't know how to sell? So there's a learning lesson you can take from every single partnership and every failure, and then I'll just apply it to the next thing that you're doing. And, if you do that enough, eventually something's going to actually work out.
I think it's fascinating when you say that neither one of us could sell and you end up creating a product that sells for you.
That is true. And I wish back then we actually had, the voice AI and everything like that. But, what can you do?
Now, what was your first pattern that you created?
Yeah, so the first, really big thing that we had was actually doing marketing for golf courses. That was, really the first. Obviously, we did the engineering and some of the prototyping stuff, but that kind of came and went very quickly, and got into doing marketing for golf courses. I'm a longtime golfer, so it was just a natural progression. Like, hey, I know this industry, I can talk the lingo. Let's get into that. And we ended up sending out mailers, like an old fashioned wrote out letters, sent them out to these golf courses saying, hey, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. And we had one guy, thankfully, he owned like 5 courses in the area. He was like, I like these guys, I'm going to give you a chance. And that was our first paying client that we got to actually start, doing some work.
That's awesome, right? So you're handwriting out mailers. I remember once I went took a job with somebody, and I worked at Discovery Zone, right, the playgrounds for kids, and I got a call that they stopped. We all got fired, and it was nothing that we did. It's just they stopped building, and they let go of the whole team. And I was like sending out resumes one at a time, and then one day I figured out how to find a list of all the people in fast growing businesses, and I sent out 600 resumes. I snuck into our office one night, and I used the copy machine. I did a mail merge between, Excel and this thing, and I did a little mail. Back then I was, I was 20 years old. This is 36 years ago. Yep. I did this mail merge, and I borrowed their stamping machine. I got it right through the stamper, and I sent out 600 resumes. And a little obsessive, but I realized the magic of mail merge, right? A system that worked. And then I realized, and I had 12 job offers, right? And then I could pick which one I wanted. It was something that was kind of amazing that I could, send out that. Back then you literally sent a resume to somebody. But it's like that's what starts you into ideas, right? Like, oh, I can use mail merge to put together the envelope and the resume, and I could make a letter that I could customize with the person's name. Hi, Bob, and I'd love to work for your company, ABC company, and then that would all end up on the envelope as well. So it's kind of a neat, as we start to find those patterns and exploit them. I think that's where people right now are. A lot of people are getting caught up in a world where I believe fear and anxiety and look, people love to get knocked. I call it unconscious, right? If it's not drugs and alcohol, which a lot of people did in the 80s, and I'm hopefully thinking people are getting smarter today, but maybe not. But if it's not that, it's fear and anxiety, it's politics, right? People start to get unconscious about their behavior. I think as you start to hold your head up and stay in a world where you're watching those patterns and opportunities, there's never been a better time to exploit them.
Absolutely. There's some of the craziest stuff nowadays, because we when we transitioned from mailers into, we did a lot of LinkedIn messaging, which is like connecting with people and then just giving them a little pitch that's like, hey, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. Is that something you're interested in? Nowadays, I was just setting this up for a new company that we have. You can implement AI. AI will scan their profile, hey, AI, do research on this company, and then spit me back out a message custom to this business. And it's like, it's crazy how fast things move, because, back in the day, again, like you said, you can't do that with a mailer.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I got a pair of Meta glasses that now I can have Meta View, Meta C, and I can look at something and I can take that picture and send it to somebody right from the glasses. And like, I'm trying to put them on all of our superintendents now, right? Okay. So now I can go, look, you can, live communicate with an architect. You got a problem on a job site, boom, put the glasses on, have Meta take a look at it, send it right to the architect. You can hold live meetings, and we're trying to use those. Look, another those places where, heads up, looking for an opportunity, try it on. Like, how I figured it out? It was about 2:00 in the morning. Okay. I was death scrolling on Instagram. Yep. And all of a sudden, these glasses popped up. And I thought to myself, let's try them. So it's like, you got to take a swing at it. And all of a sudden I've been wearing them and trying them on, and, the ideas start to flow. Right. Yep. And I think that's the gift of the time we're in right now. There's all these things that are coming. How could they be of service to you? Right. How can they be a gift to you?
Absolutely. I just actually had a conversation with my mom the other day about, hey, you need to use ChatGPT, because if you don't, like, you're going to be left behind. And she sent me a picture of her using it, just like asking it different recipes and stuff. So it's like very basic, but like, if you're not using it, again, it's like, kind of like the internet. back in the day, my grandparents didn't even know how to use email. And, again, if you're not using it, it's going to catch up to you. Like you said, like you need to have your head up and looking around.
I get so many friends of mine that are my age that are all like, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm going to retire. I'm like, you're not going to make it. You're not here. You are not going to make it to retirement. It's in 2025, AI will be a major part of the world. In 2026, if you're not in it, you're out of it. And, what's happening, the advances that we're doing, what's happening in our world. You're exactly right. Start now. Look, the problem is that, especially guys like me, I'm 56 years old. I'm tired of being a fool, right? Every new idea requires you to step into being a fool for a minute, right? To get, Jordan Peterson says it best, in order to become a master, I've got to be a fool first, right? And, at 56, I've been a fool a bunch, right? I've gone through a bunch of learning. I started life without computers, without cell phones, right? And I've had to change all these times. And you're like, okay, I can change again. Yeah. Hey, by the way, you do. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. The only gift of knowing life is that it will never stop changing.
Yep. That is one thing I did want to highlight is you mentioned death scrolling on Instagram. And to be honest with you, that is the number one way that I keep up with trends in new tech. And even, we're big into advertising and marketing. So I'm constantly like, what are people advertising? How are they advertising? And taking those strategies, and then we apply them to our clients. If there's a new method or new platform or new, different placements of way we do things, we can apply that to our clients, and then they're getting better results. So it's absolutely just, kind of being a consumer and looking at, what's available out there, and then, putting it into place in your business.
What's funny is, I think my parents did it with me. I did it with my children. A lot of times you have judgment about, that scrolling. Oh my God, they're wasting their time. I today now look at it and go, it's a gift. The truth is, it's training our brains, right? It's hard to see that, like, because I don't understand it. My one of my sons was big into a video game when he was a kid, and he would play this video game all the time, and I was like, what is he doing? And I would get frustrated, like, his screen time was a lot. And one day I stopped getting mad. I said, let me come check it out with you. And I got into the video game with him, and it was amazing. The truth was, he had set up all these different worlds. He had all these different outfits. He had all these cool things he had gained and developed and grew. And you could see his mind growing, little cities and little civilizations. And once I got into it, I stopped judging him, because I didn't understand it. I got to see the brilliance of how cool it was, right? I was like, wow, look at that. And today he's just a very articulate thinker, right? He's patient, and he's a long-term thinker. And I sometimes I wonder, right? I think he got it from there, more from me. He got it from there, from some of those games he was playing. And I think sometimes, we don't see that from where we stand. And I think if we can look at it and go, all right, look, again, another one of those places where if this is all in service of the life that we're leaving somewhere in our future, everything that we're going through now, politically, economically, company-wise, the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations of the businesses that we grow, if it's all in service of something we're going to have in the future, right? But by the way, sometimes, and we can think of all the problems we go through as gifts. It's a different way of thinking about it. But sometimes I get to the point where I don't need any more gifts. I'm tired of gifts.
Yeah, true. Very true. It's super interesting to just, again, look at the whole industry, and it's tough. I feel like when you're in it to be like, this is, a gift, right? When your business is failing, again, we had times where we were on our high, and then the next month's literally the lowest it's been. And it's hard to look at that as a gift, but years down the line, you absolutely will look at it as a gift and a learning lesson.
No one ever told me that to be an entrepreneur, I was going to have an idea, grow the idea, but then I was also going to have to be a marketing expert, an HR expert, a financing expert, right? I did all these other business, an internet expert. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just love doing construction.
Yeah.
I all of a sudden now I got to, be a social media expert. I'm like, listen, man, we build great stuff. I love taking care of my customers. Oh, no, but we have to have a presence, and, so the world sees you nowadays. I'm like, can't we just build stuff and they just know it? No, They can't see if they can't. I'm like, okay. And I take another step. I got to step into being a fool for a moment. And then from being a fool, I get to become a master. and then we grow. I mean, here, not always mastery perfect, right? Idea, grow the idea, right? There's always this kind of walking through broken glass to get there. And, I think we can see that, right? I think we can see that growing these ideas takes a little bit of hard work. So I think it's amazing. Let's kind of dive in. So if people want to get involved with you, let's talk about who are the perfect customers for you, and kind of what you can do for them.
Absolutely. So we really have two levels of service with where we're currently at. So our ideal customer, just entry level service, is going to be anybody that's been in business for a few years and really is looking for somebody to come in and take a lot of the admin, marketing, kind of just back end stuff off their plate. Again, we're implementing marketing, which is going to help out with your client acquisition. We're implementing the voice AI just in general, and systems that's going to help with some of the admin work and all of the just different communication you have to have in relation to client acquisition. And then we have the system aspect, which is the software, again, making sure everything's kind of in order. And, we have some automations and stuff in there. So that's really our entry level. And that's usually for somebody that, again, we have some people that are just starting out. Obviously, there's a fee to what we do. So we like to say, hey, if you have a little bit of, years in the business, you've made a little bit of money, that then, we can come in there and help you out. And then we have kind of our bigger level package, which again, this is part of a new company, Outscaled. It's only been around for about 1.5 years now. And we've actually, identified, these are the clients that are like literally perfect for us. And we want to throw the kitchen sink. Everything that we know, we want to throw them at them. And we've actually started to take on different partnerships on either an equity basis or just a rev share basis, where we actually come in, we're a part of their team on a day-to-day, and we're actually able to grow with them instead of just a, business to client relationship.
Fun. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to catch up with you?
Absolutely. To be honest, just so we can route you in the best direction, it's just jakesetterlun.com. Our team will get that message, and then we can route you into, the different companies based off of what industry you're in.
Well, Jake Setterlun, you are just a magician. The work you're doing is fun to watch. And it was a pleasure having, our pre-calls with you and the time we get to spend with you as you continue to break through great ideas. I'd love to continue having you on the show, and bring these ideas to our people. It's fun to have you on.
Absolutely, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. And thanks for being here. Hey, audience, last week had another break. We had 65,000 subscribers last week. It's unbelievable how we're breaking through, and you guys are just doing so much. I'm just so grateful. Thank you. But we noticed that last week we had over 1,000 people that downloaded for us, but we had a bunch of people that got to the end of the podcast that were not subscribers. If you could take a second and just like and subscribe, it means the world to Alyssa and Joe and all the great people in the background that put this team together, that work hard to get us great guests like Jake to come on. The numbers do make a difference in the guests we're able to bring in. So if you get a second, please do that now for us. I'd be so grateful. And as always, thanks for listening.